some things you might want to grab beforehand are scissors, tape, and then a hammer, or I'm using a block of wood because it's a little quieter and less chance of me hitting the camera. You'll also want to put something under the table to protect it, and I need to actually grab that for myself. So I've got a cutting mat, but you could use like towels or some other kind of fabric that you don't mind getting holes in. And that's just in case you go a little too far with one of the nails. I'll go over some of the things we have in our kit. I've got a clothespin to help us hold the nails and not hurt our fingers. We've got these finishing nails, or they're wire nails depending on which batch you got. They're basically the same. We've got our pattern and we've got our embroidery floss. And then you have your base. Mine has holes in it because I just took my sample apart so that I could reuse it for this. Yours will not have holes in it because you'll be putting your nails in. So our first step will be to cut out this template. And it doesn't matter if you do on the outside or the inside. If you want it a little thicker, you can do outside the lines. I'm kind of just cutting right down the middle. And now that I've got it cut out, I will just use the tape to put it onto my board where I want it. And I just do tape rolls. They're kind of hard to see because they're clear. They don't show up well on the camera. I'm just going to try to line mine up since I'm reusing my piece. I included 80 nails. So hopefully that'll be enough for you to do that. That was a little more than I used. And I kind of spaced them out about a centimeter or more between each spot. I just put the nail in my clothespin here, and then going along the edge of my pattern. So actually I'll move up here so it's a little easier to see. Moving alongside the edge of the pattern, I just hold it in place and then nail it in. The first couple of them might be a little bit of a figuring out how deep you can put it. A couple light pounds usually works. You don't want to really hit it because you're going to really go through your piece here. And I put the foam backing on these so that it gave it a little bit more space to go into. If you do have any that end up getting pushed too far, because I did have some on this one, you can always kind of push them back in with your either a block of wood or with the nail. That way you don't have things on the back that are catching and possibly damaging surfaces like your wall if you hang it up. So then, and you don't have to use the clothespin if you're comfortable with it. And the clothespin kind of gives a good reference of width. And we're just going to do that all the way around. Here, I'll show one. I already have holes, so that made it easy. You just want them to be in there enough that they don't come out, but not all the way through on the back. Once you get a few that are the right height, that kind of gives you an idea of where you want it to be. And if any feel loose, you can always add a light tap to make sure it's in there a little better. I'm actually taking my pattern off since I've got the markings of mine already. And you'll want to make sure to kind of define the corner parts of yours. So if I put this back on, so you want to make sure there's one on the points, and I put one here kind of this corner, and I've got one here for that corner, just to help define your shape. And then I made sure to put one at the lowest point here too. So there I've marked my points that I want to make sure to have. And every so often I'm gonna just check the back of it, see if any of them are too far in. And that one right there is. So I'm gonna just kind of push it back in. Another option you could do if you do want to protect like a wall, if you're hanging it up, is you could put another layer of something on the back after you're done. I was able to push that one back through. And that layer could be something like felt, or you could even just do some kind of fabric, any scrap fabric you have around, and you can just glue it on. And I was able to remove my nails using a set of pliers. If you do have one that you don't want in a spot, you can pull them out with pliers. You will be left with a hole, so like I've got an extra hole right there. But once it was finished, it wasn't noticeable. Now, if it was like out here, that would be pretty noticeable. In that case, you might want to fill it in with some wood filler. And you don't necessarily even have to buy a wood filler. If you've got any sawdust around, you can mix that with a little glue and you can fill it in that way too. That's essentially what wood filler is. So when you're done putting in the nails, it'll end up looking like this. You should have a pretty distinct shape, and you would have your pattern in here like that. And you can kind of even using this, kind of get it out. And it doesn't really matter if you like fold it or tear it or anything, because you're not going to need it anymore. So then after that, we're going to start adding our embroidery floss. I've included 3 things of it. That's how much I needed to get the look that I needed. So to get started doing this, I'm just going to take and make a knot right there on one of the nails. Make sure that part is in and just start wrapping around. And I actually like to wrap around the outside portion first to get an outline. And I guess my outline is going to be blue. And ever so often as my nails kind of change direction, I wrap around a nail to hold that shape. You can push them down a little bit. That way it'll leave room for our next layers. Now I want to keep holding it pretty tight or else it'll kind of get away from you. And now that I've reached this point that I began at, I'm going to just start, oops, go back again and catch that. I'm just going to start going around randomly in it, making lines. And I can go over 2 or so of them so that it makes a different line shape. You can also wrap around like I did before. That way I can pick up another color and start putting it in there, or you can do all of one color at a time. That's how I did my original sample, but I was working with colors that were all pretty close in the same shades in that. And I had ones that changed colors over the thing. So I'm going to start pulling in my yellow. If you add a color, all you have to do is tie a knot like we did before to hold it in place. And then you can randomly go around in here also. And then I'm going to add in my third color. And when you finish off a color, you do the exact same thing you do at the beginning. You just tie it on and tuck in that end. I'll show that when I run out of a color. So you don't have to use all 3 that I gave you either. And try to wrap around at least once on each nail. This is about all I can wrap around. I'm gonna take and make a knot around the last one, and then tuck my thread in. I can also trim it a little since this is a little longer. And tuck that in. I'm going to use my scissors to kind of help. I'm going to pick up my other colors and continue filling in, making those contrasting colors all across my shape. And you can do this project with other shapes. All I did was find a coloring book tail and printed it out to make our shape. You could also draw your own shape. And then I'm going to pick up my blue and finish off with that. Filling in anywhere that seems like it could use some color, and filling in anywhere I want to contrast. Once again, just knotting it. Hang it off on one of the nails. Maybe trimming it if I need to. And tucking that thread in. Either with your fingers or the scissors can assist. And if you want it up, you can leave it up, or if you want, you can push it down. You might even want to look around, see if there's any that kind of got caught on the outside of nails that you don't want it on that edge like that. You can bring them in. Or if you want to put them on the outside, you can. And that's our whale tail or mermaid tail, depending on what you want it to be.